Okay, so let's talk about slope today. Okay, so the slope of a line is just how steep it is, right? So slope has to do with equations of lines. And when you're looking at slope, you just want to find out how steep it is, okay? So you might remember your teachers talking about rise over run, right? And so what that means is your rise, so how much your y changes, right? So your change in y over your change in x, okay? Right, so they refer to it. Sometimes we've seen it as rise over run, or change in y over your change in x. Okay, and that's really the basis of slope. And there's more to it than, like, you can get further into it. But right now I just want to talk about finding the slope given 2 points. Okay, so right now I'm just drawing a line with 2 specific points. Okay, and I've kind of made up these points. They're 3, -5, and 5, 1. All right, and so I'm just gonna create some dashes on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and I'm going to just plot these points, right? So this is my x and my y variable, right? So I'm going to label this one x1, y1, and this one will be x2, y2, right? Okay, so my x1, y1 is the point 3, -5. So I'm going to go over 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go down to -5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About there, right? Yeah. Okay. And then my other point is the point 5, 1. So I'm going to go over on my x-axis, right? This is your x variable is +5. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to go up 1. That's your y. And then I'm going to connect these 2 dots, right? That's how we draw a line. I'm going to try to do it how nicely as possible. And I'm just going to go in to kind of really make these 2 points stand out for just right now. Okay. All right. And so, like I said, right, your slope is your change in y over your change in x, right? Your rise over your run. So the change in y here, right? How far am I going from this point of -5 up to this point of 1? So how many spots of points are in between those guys? Well, from -5 up to 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So my change in y is 6. Change in y. And that's 6, okay? And now I'm going to look at my change in x. And so my change in x goes from the point 3 over to the point 5, right? So from 3 to 5, 1, 2. So this is my change in x. Change in x, right? And so that equals 2. So my slope being my change in y over my change in x means that for these 2 points, my slope, right, and we represent, right, m represents slope, is going to be 6 over 2. And when I reduce that, I get that 6 divided by 2 is just 3. So my slope here is 3. okay? And what that means is that for every 3 points that I go up, right, my change in y, I go over 1 point in my x value, to the right 1 point, okay? And so that's just, so another point on this line then would mean that it's the point 4, I went down -5, so I'm going up 1, -4, -3, -4, -2 is another point on this line, right? If I go up 3 and over 1 from this point, -5, 3, -5, right? I'm going up. Oops, sorry. I'm going, this point here is the point 4, -2, right? I went up 3 and over 1, okay? So that's how you find the slope using a graph, right? But there's another way that we can find slope, okay? And the other way is there's a formula, right? So you can see this formula was just your change in y over change in x. But written out more mathematically, your formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? It's our change in y over our change in x. So using these 2 points again, so let's see. Sorry, what my points were 3, -5, and 5, 1, right? So I'm going to use these 2 points to find the slope here. All right, so I'm going to label this one x1, y1, and x2, y2. Now, it really doesn't matter which ones I designate as my x1, y1 or my x2, y2. What matters is that I keep them aligned, okay? So I'm going to do y2, which is 1, right? So y2 is 1, minus my y1, which is -5, over my x2, which is 5, minus my x1, which is 3. Okay? So from here I get that m is equal to, well, this negative and negative, so 1 minus a -5 becomes 1 plus a +5, so that's 6. And 5 minus 3 is just 2. And so I get that m equals 3, just like we got before when we were graphing it. Okay? And like I said, it doesn't matter which one I label as my x1 and y1 versus my x2 and y2. You're going to get the same answer. I can show you that pretty quickly using, if we switch it up, we'll make this my x2, y2, and this my x1, y1, and you'll see that I get the same answer. Okay, so here now my y2 is -5 minus my y1, over my x2, which here is 3, minus my x1, which is 5, right? So here I get that -5 minus 1 is going to be -6, and 3 minus 5 is -2. And you'll see, so now we have a -6 divided by a -2. Negative divided by a negative becomes positive, right? And 6 divided by 2 is just 3. So you can see I get the same answer. But so it's just important that you make sure that your y2 and your x2 are lined up. So they're going first, and your oops, I'm sorry about that. I just realized that I had written x2, x2. That's not good. Sorry. And so your x1 and y1 are lined up also, okay? All right, so let's look at one more quick equation or quick example. So I'm going to clear this, all right? And so now we're just going to look at another example. Okay, so let's find the slope between the following pair of points, -9 and 15, and the point 4, -2, okay? So it doesn't matter which points I label my 1s, which points I label my 2s, but I must stay consistent, right? So I'm going to label this -9, 15 as my x1, y1, and 4, -2 as my x2, y2. Okay, and then I'm going to use my slope formula. So slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So from here, I get that slope is equal to -2 minus 15 over my x2 is 4 minus my x1 is minus a -9. Okay, and now I'm just going to add up top or subtract up top. -2 minus 15 is going to be -17. And then 4 minus a -9, right? And minus a negative means I'm going to add a positive. So 4 plus 9 is 13. So here my slope is -17 over 13. Now, before we had a positive slope, right? And so a positive slope means my points are going up like this, right? So my line is going up like this. This is a positive slope, okay? This equation you can see is a negative slope, right? So that means actually I do have 2 points, so I could graph them and you can kind of see that this line will go down. So my points were -9 and 15. So let's say up here somewhere, -9, 15. So I'm not being super precise now. And then 4, -2. Okay, 4, -2. And right, when we connect these guys, you can see, oops, imagine I went through that line. You can see that this is a negative slope. So we're going down, negative slope, right? When I'm looking at my line going from left to right, you can see it's going down. It's going below the y-axis. It's getting more negative as I'm going, as my x is getting more positive. Okay, and so that's it on finding the slope given 2 points. I'm going to also create a video on finding the slope from given an equation, okay? So that will be the next video, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys. All right.